polishing of the hammer decreases the drag inside the tube. The trigger itself, on the inside, I polished the sear, polished all of the points of contact between the sear and the trigger and the hammer. The spring, the trigger spring, I replaced with a lighter spring. Now, give you a really good recommendation that I came across online on a forum, and that is when you're going to do the valve and you're going to replace the spring in the valve, a really good spring to use, lighter than the stock valve spring, is the trigger spring. So the stock trigger spring, use that inside your valve. What I ended up using spring-wise for the trigger to replace that was, picked up at my local hardware store. Along with that, to keep the spring from curving too much in its resting position and also in its firing position, you want to keep it as straight up and down as possible. So you need a spring guide, which, again, I picked these up. Some people use a empty 22 shell. You'll find that online, recommended quite a bit. At your local hardware store, you should be able to find these, and they're called flange bearings. They're plastic, but kind of top hat shaped. The ones I used were bigger in diameter, but at the bottom post for the spring, it will fit over, and one up at the top, the spring in between the flanges and being guided with the post portion of this particular part. Extremely inexpensive at your local hardware store. Let's see. Along with power mods, once you do this, you increase the storage capacity of air in your valve. This is going to allow you to pump more than 10 times. You're going to have to get what is now the new increased amount of air that can be stored in your valve. Now, all of that is going to put more wear and tear on your pumping mechanism. So that has to be upgraded. Keep that in mind. The way I did that was the newer 2289s. Just inside here, this particular point is what's called a piston, and it has a rubber cup at the end. The gap that's made between opening up this pump as much as it can and closing it, that air that's in between gets pushed into the valve. So I shimmed the pump cup. The newer versions of this have a stiffer piston than the older versions. The plastic material that's used is stronger. So that's an upgrade in and of itself, just with the stock piston. I went ahead and stuffed it, is a practice that's called, which was putting metal rods, filling in open areas of the piston with metal rods. I did that with mine because I was expecting to have to pump this quite a bit. Some people use a flat top piston and valve. That completely replaces stock piston. It's adjustable. What it allows you to do is achieve a certain velocity with less pumps, and it's easier pumping as well. Um, Cost-wise, I didn't want to go that direction. That was going to add money into the project, and I've already kind of went past my normal practice, which is keep everything simple and as low cost as possible. And I was, between the trigger shoe, which is a performance upgrade, but also an appearance upgrade, the muzzle brake, even though it was minimal, the cost of painting the stock and pump handle, this was all adding into the cost of the project. So as far as the valve and the piston go, I went with stock. But again, reinforcing this entire mechanism here, as well as stuffing the piston and shimming the cup, I also replaced the barrel band with this particular barrel band you would get on a Crosman custom shop gun, but you can buy it. It's a slightly longer and stronger barrel band. You can find that from various places online. Again, Alchemy Airworks is a place that sells those. I went ahead and added 2 additional screws to the barrel band right here and on the opposite side. That was per a recommendation I came across online. I replaced the roll pin that's used as the pivot point for the pump handle with a hardened steel rod. Machined grooves on both ends and use O-rings inside the grooves to hold it in place. It's a very clean look. I had tried something else, which was stainless steel. Very simple, functioning, well, good-looking alternative. Unfortunately, stainless steel is soft, and you add that to extra pumping, and it was just too weak in a critical spot. I ended up bending it and eventually snapping it in half, which led me to go this route with stainless steel rod at this pivot point. Here's the added screw. This, I am completely confident I can pump this well over 10. I can go well over 20 pumps with this, and I'm not going to bend this this hardened steel pin. That was another reinforcement of that particular area. The other thing I did is, now that your valve can be pumped up with more air, which for me, I'm going to have to use more pumping to achieve that, the valve is under more stress itself. Now, stock-wise, the valve is held in place with the front trigger guard screw, and only the front trigger guard screw. Well, I drilled and tapped a hole through the pump tube into the top of the valve, directly across from this screw. Directly across from there, on top, which overlaps the pump tube, sits low enough that it doesn't interfere with the steel breech, but adds an additional holding point for the valve besides just this directly across from it on top. So all of that has to be taken into consideration if you're going to want to increase the power of your gun. The storage of the air, whatever is it's being used, in this case the valve, you're going to have to strengthen how it's being held. You're planning on pumping more to get that extra air into your valve. Your pumping system has to be more rigid and strengthened. Generally speaking, there'll be a lot of side-to-side slop in the pump handle, which you can take out by adding washers, either at this point between the piston and this steel arm. You can also do it up here between the portion of the steel arm that attaches to the pump handle and where it goes inside of the pump tube. So, that's what got me this. I was really pleased with it. What I was shooting for velocity-wise was 680 feet per second. Because the fastest I could get with a reasonable amount of pumps stock was 580. I wanted to increase that 100. Now, and with the capability of going up to 25, 30, 35 pumps is pretty much the max I would use. I can achieve well beyond the 680 that I was shooting for. Looking through my notes, I've hit, well over 700 feet per second, 710 feet per second. Now, the weight of the pellet has a lot to do with that. If I'm going hunting and I'm more concerned with foot-pounds of energy, a slower velocity and a heavier pellet is going to give me higher foot-pounds of energy than a lighter pellet. So velocity is not everything, especially when you're hunting. It really is not at all the most important thing. It's the weight of the pellet that you're firing coupled with how fast you can get it to travel. But one of the other things I did, there's also a lot of play stock-wise between the rear stock and its attachment point. This is basically a 1322 pistol that Crosman sells. It does come with a 14.5-inch barrel, much longer than the stock barrel that comes on the 1322. But everything else is pretty much exactly the same, except you also get the rear portion of the stock. But it attaches to a metal grip, pistol grip frame that's identical to the 1322. It has a little pin back here that can be pressed to release it. Take it on, take it off. Well, I really wasn't planning on taking it off very much, and I wanted to reduce the slop that comes stock in it. And I drilled and tapped a hole down here and added a 632 screw. It goes through the metal of